Okay, you should be working on a project involving paper today. So get some scissors, color pencils, crayons, whatever out. Don't forget to put your trash away later. Sorry, I'm like really short in my chair. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut this out. So cut out each of your little items at the top and then cut around this black frame, okay? So think my piece of paper is this big white area on my screen. I don't have the black part around it, right? But you do. And then you're going to take your little items after you cut them out, and you're just going to kind of put them all over your paper, like I have on mine now. Okay. And then I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about Photoshop and how it relates to your piece of paper. Okay. So one of the first things it tells you to do in the instructions in the Layers of Me assignment is in the 8-point star, write your first name using bubble letters or block letters. Okay. So I'm going to add a star to mine. Now we've looked at it in class, like where the shapes are. There's a rectangle here. If I click and hold my rectangle tool, there is a tool called the star tool. And whenever I click that up here at my properties at top, I can tell it I want 8 points. And then this here is how rounded do I want my edges of my star to be. I'm just going to set it on 1. And then I'm going to draw my star because I don't have a star. And your star won't look like this star, but that's okay. All right, so here's my star. I'm going to grab my move tool, and I'm just going to put the star down here for now. Now, your star that you have on your paper, you just cut it out and it's just there. I want you to write your first name using bubble or block letters. Now, if I try to do that on my star, right here, I have a layer called star 1. So if I try to draw that, I'm just going to take a paintbrush because that's what you would be doing. You're using a pencil or a pen or something. If I try to draw on my star, it won't let me. And that's because a star is a special type of item in Photoshop. So is text. They have special layers. So when you look at my layers over here in Photoshop, my star layer has that little thing in the corner of it telling you that this is a shape. And because it's a shape, I can't paintbrush on it. So if I try to paintbrush on it, it's going to say no. And then it says this layer must be rasterized. And in order for me to draw in that shape, I'm going to have to rasterize it. I'm going to hit OK. And if you look at it now, that little thing goes away. Now, I can't edit this star anymore, but it is now a rasterized star. So I'm going to zoom up and I'm just going to put my initials instead of my name. So let me grab a black paintbrush here. So T, S, these are my bubble or block letters. Isn't that nice? It's not the greatest. Okay, and if I toggle on and off my star layer, you'll see that is all part of my star. Okay, perfect. So we've got that. I'm holding down, by the way, my Alt key and scrolling my mouse so that I can zoom out. So there's that. If I take my move tool and pick it up and move it around, then there we go. Okay. Your next thing, it says in each balloon, put something that makes you happy, you like, enjoy doing, etc. Now, our balloons are already, on my example, rasterized. You can tell because they don't have any special icon in the corner. So I can paint on this balloon. So if I like Netflix, then I could take my paintbrush and I could put it on whatever color here. And then I could type that in here. So I'm going to write it, Netflix. And I'm not using the type tool because you are not using the type tool. You are using a pencil or something. Okay? All right. So that is part of my balloon layer, right? So there's one of my balloons. The other balloon is like what's something else that makes you happy. So I'm going to pick blue this time, and I might say, oops, notice what I did here. I did not click off of my balloon layer. So what happens here is behind my balloon 2, there's my S. Whoopsies. So I'm going to undo my move and then undo my brush to get rid of that. And I need to click back on my yellow layer so I'm actually writing on this balloon. Okay, so there's my paintbrush. If I want to say sunny days, I'll just say sun here on that one. In the dialog call out, so this little talk bubble, so I'm going to click on my talk bubble, draw something representing how you feel about taking this class. Oh my gosh, hopefully you're really excited about it. So I'm just going to draw this like super excited face because we should be so excited. And I'm going to turn that off and on to make sure it looks good. Okay, so when we've paintbrushed on these, we've paintbrushed on existing rasterized layers. That means they're not special layers, they're just plain old layers. So notice they all just have checkerboards on the thumbnails, no little icons, no letters, no anything. They're just plain rasterized layers. That's what a normal layer is. In the trash can icon, draw something you could do without, something that annoys you or whatever. So I'm going to click on my trash can icon, and then again on this one I'm going to pick a color. You would put something that annoys you, okay? And I'm just going to put mean people. Mean peeps. Wow, now you see how bad my handwriting is. Okay, so I've got all of those in there now. And then on the face, draw your face and hair, but do not allow the hair to touch the black frame. So make sure you keep it inside there. Now, at this point, you're probably having to move your stuff around. In Photoshop, to move it around, I have to use my Move tool up the top, right? So for now, I'm going to scoot some of these things out of the way because I'm going to be working on my face, and the face is on my background. So I'm going to have to draw on my background. I'm hoping that your pictures are so much more lovely than mine. But I'm not really good at drawing, so I'm not going to make you watch me do this part. Oops. I got to make sure my background is unlocked. So a background layer is a fixed layer. And once you take yours and you just put it down and you're moving everything around, your background layer would be something that we would have to unlock, right? As we talk about this here in a minute, at the bottom, you'll see there was a padlock here that I clicked on so that I would be able to write on this little layer here. Okay, again, I'm not good at drawing. This doesn't look anything like me, but I bet your pictures will look like you. Okay, now for the sake of time, we're not going to watch me draw myself. So I'm not going to take the time to do this well. But hey, that definitely looks like me if I had more hair. Kidding. Okay, so notice now I have all things on these different layers. All right, now again, once you're done drawing all of the things, make sure that you have scissors and you cut out all of your little pieces. And then you're going to cut around that black frame, keep the person, keep the white space, and on your desk, I want you to design a scene with all of this stuff. Now, on the computer, I can make things bigger or smaller. On your desk, you're stuck with the size that these little guys are already, right? So that's all you got to deal with. So, class discussion points that I want you to make sure you learn based on this little kind of intro review lesson. I want you to take a small piece of tape, and all that stuff is by my printers at the back of the room. I want you to take a small piece of tape and tape the big box to your desk. This would represent the background layer. Once you have your background layer like you want it, so now that I have my person on here, I want to lock it so I don't accidentally pick up this background layer. And technically, you could lock any layer. So if I don't want to accidentally move something once I get it where I want, I can lock it. So if I have this blue balloon where I wanted it, I could hit this lock button and be like, don't move, balloon. So I could do that. All right, if you drew on the background layer, this is a great illustration of the brush tool. So we showed that. I showed you that I painted on my background layer. It's now called layer 0, and it's locked. So notice if I tried to draw on it now, it won't let me because it's locked. If I click, it's going to say, hey, this layer is locked. But this illustrates that. Remember that when we brush something, we have to have a layer to brush on, because otherwise it's just going to brush on whatever layer you're clicked on. So I was clicked on my balloon layer, it brushed on my balloon. I'm clicked on my background layer, it's going to brush on my background layer. However, remember we talked about if you click on a layer that's not just a regular raster layer, you're going to get an error, and it's going to want you to rasterize it. And that's something we have to be careful about, because we don't want to rasterize something. Okay, each other item can either represent importing, placing a picture, or inserting a shape. All of these other things would create their own layers. So if I went and got another picture off the internet and pasted it in here, it would make its own layer. And that's basically how each of these other layers work. All right. Now, you're going to also make sure that you have everything layered the way you want. So let's say I want to put this. Now, I can't put this trash can behind my head here because the head is the background layer. So there's no way for the trash can to be behind it. But I'm going to put my trash can down here. This one here, I'm just going to kind of put on this side. But if you wanted to spin yours a little bit, that's called transforming in Photoshop. So if I have my transform controls here, I can just spin my little star. So you can also spin your star. Here I would have to hit done, however. Same thing with the rest of these. Now, you can't resize your paper, but if we click and we have transform controls on something, we can resize by pulling on these handles, or we can rotate. and then I can pick it up and hit done when I'm done. So you're just going to put your stuff however you want to put it on your actual paper, but I'm of course doing mine electronically. Now, so far we haven't had to really do any selections of things, but once we get into it, you'll be selecting items to, say, remove the background and so forth. So our example here today is, how did you do at cutting? Do you have some little white spaces around the things that you cut out? If so, those are what we would call poor selections. And in Photoshop, we want to make sure we have good, solid selections. Now, you don't have these little strings here on your balloons, but we talked about already in class, and I'm going to show you now too, how to remove something without erasing it. So because we have a rasterized layer, technically I could just erase this, right? I can grab an eraser. We talked in class about how an eraser is a brush. So up here at the top, we're going to see that circle. That brush has a hardness and a size. And I have this brush set all the way to hard, so I can just sit here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom up just a little bit. I'm holding down the Alt key and rolling my mouse. And then if I take this, I'm erasing it. Okay, and now it's gone. So my balloon no longer has that there. But one of the things that we're going to use a lot more in this class are what are called layer masks for non-destructive editing. So in this case, I'm going to hide the string rather than erase it. Okay, it's actually a very similar process. So we're going to click on this little square down here on my layers panel. That's to add a layer mask, which is this little white box. And then on this little white box, I can use a regular paintbrush. Not an eraser, a regular paintbrush. So I'm going to click on this regular paintbrush. Over here where these little squares are, I'm going to click on the baby squares and then click the arrow so that black is on top. And then you just paint in black. I'm pressing the bracket keys to the right of the letter P to make these bigger. You paint in black over these, and now that's gone. Now I didn't do the greatest job, and I'm going to mess this up on purpose. So see how I got up into the balloon here? Now if you used an eraser, you're kind of out of luck. I mean, you could hit undo, but you're kind of out of luck in a way. If you start doing other things, you'd have to undo a bunch of times. Or if you saved it the next day, it'd be missing still. But not if you used a mask. So since I have a layer mask, I can click on the little white layer mask. I can come back over to my squares and flip it so white is on top. And then I'm going to make my brush a little smaller. And then now I can paint it right back in. And if I go too far, no big deal. Switch it and then paint it back out. Isn't that fancy? So that's kind of a good explanation of how to use a layer mask. Just remember, black hides and white shows on a layer mask. And also on this document, it's a little hard to see because the background is white, but if I turn the background off, if I toggle the background off, you can actually see how that all works. So when you're finished with yours, I'm going to ask you to glue all of your little pages down, or you could use tape if you wanted to. If you glue them all down, this is like what we call exporting a file. When you export a file, it saves it, but it's all in one thing. So I'm going to save this document first. Then I'm going to export it. So we're always going to save and export. So I'm going to go File, Export, Export As, and I'm going to make this a JPEG and just hit Export, and then I'm going to call it Face Export. And I'm just going to show you what happens when you export something. Okay? Now, the document I have open right now is the face one. So I'm going to go open the one that I exported, this export one. Okay? Now, this is important. When I open this, look what happens. In the new document, there's no layers. Yeah. So when you export something, it glues it all together, just like you glued or taped all of your pieces down. So we always want to save the PSD file and do an export. That way we have an exported version we can put on a Google slide, turn it on Canvas, whatever. And we have this document in the event we need to go back and re-edit or fix something. Okay, so hopefully you've made your little person, put up all your stuff, and then use your camera on your computer. You can type in camera to open the app. Make sure you allow it to access everything, and then take a picture and turn it in on Canvas.